Paige Bueckers is moving the needle more than Caitlin Clark ever could. That's what the haters started saying literally minutes after UConn cut down the nets. But are they living in an alternate reality? For someone that was literally not even playing in the game, Clark sure lived rent-free in a lot of heads during the national championship, and soured a great storybook ending by pitting Bueckers against her. The viewership numbers tell a completely different story, one that exposes just how powerful Clark's impact on women's basketball really is. If you've been wondering whether the post-Clark era can maintain the momentum, the data we're about to share might surprise you. Are you ready? Let's go. Yeah, some would say people who did want it, people compare Caitlin Clark to Paige and Juju. They're doing the same thing, man. It's really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous, man. They couldn't even allow Paige Bueckers to have her day. The scoreboard told the story in no uncertain terms. UConn 82, South Carolina 59. It wasn't just a win. It was a statement. The Huskies had just dismantled the once dominant South Carolina in a championship performance that perfectly capped Paige Bueckers' comeback journey. After missing an entire season with an ACL tear that threatened to derail her college career, Bueckers had reached basketball's promised land, standing amid falling confetti with the trophy that represented everything she'd fought through. The victory marked Gino Auriemma's 12th national championship, an achievement that stands alone in the college basketball world. His coaching legacy, already secure, now seems almost mythical. On the court, players embraced, tears flowed, nets were cut. Sarah Strong, UConn's freshman phenom, had delivered a breakout performance that hinted at the program's bright future. Meanwhile, Azzi Fudd had completed her own comeback story, contributing crucial minutes after battling through injury struggles that paralleled Bueckers' own journey, winning the Most Outstanding Player award. But while champagne bottles were still being uncorked in the locker room, something ugly was brewing online. The celebration had barely begun when social media timelines filled with an entirely different narrative, one that wasn't about celebrating the Huskies' achievement, but instead about using it as ammunition in a manufactured rivalry. Former NBA player Ethan Thomas fired one of the first shots, posting, "So when I asked why Paige Bueckers doesn't get the fawning over like Caitlin Clark, many responded that she just wasn't as good and not a generational talent." Well, now she won a championship, something Caitlin Clark didn't do. So, y'all still stand by that, or is it something else? Paige has more rings, than Caitlin Clark. I mean, mate, this whole day about Paige getting a ring over Caitlin Clark is crazy, man. Paige going out in a way that Caitlin couldn't, a national champion. That's the separator behind their legendary careers. Let's effing go. Within minutes, what should have been Paige's moment transformed into a referendum on Caitlin Clark. Rather than discussing Bueckers' surgical dismantling of South Carolina's defense or her leadership throughout the tournament, commentators and fans alike rushed to position her accomplishment as evidence in the ongoing debate about who deserves more attention, more praise, more recognition. Ring on Paige finger, but no ring on Caitlin finger. Ring on Paige finger, no ring on your finger, Caitlin. I mean, they've made it all about Caitlin, bro. Paige Bueckers more rings than Caitlin Clark. Hey man, this is crazy work. The shift happened with lightning speed. 1 minute, basketball fans were witnessing the culmination of an inspiring comeback story. The next, they were drowning in hot takes, comparing two players who have each contributed immensely to women's basketball in their own unique ways. Suddenly, terms like moving the needle dominated the conversation, with Bueckers' championship being wielded as proof that she deserved the spotlight Clark had received throughout the previous season. The genuine joy radiating from the court stood in stark contrast to the divisive, often mean-spirited conversations unfolding online. Players who had just accomplished something historic found their achievement immediately recontextualized as merely one data point in an argument they themselves had never asked to be part of. Now you do have some Caitlin Clark fans getting on Twitter as well and calling them out. I'd never heard of people putting down certain players for winning a natty until Caitlin Clark didn't win. Behind all the hot takes and heated Twitter threads lies something much more revealing. Cold, hard data. while social media warriors boldly claimed Paige Bueckers was moving the needle more than Caitlin Clark, the television ratings tell a dramatically different story. When you strip away the opinions and look at the actual numbers, the contrast between 2024 and 2025 viewership isn't just noticeable, it's stunning. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody keeps telling me that Paige Bueckers is going to move the needle on the wnba in the same way that Caitlin Clark did. Well, maybe she will, but I know one thing, in college, nah. That needle ain't moving. That needle didn't shiver. Compared to Caitlin Clark, let's get specific with the numbers. The 2024 Final Four matchup between Iowa and UConn drew an astronomical 14.2 million viewers. You read that right. 14.2 million people tuned in to watch Caitlin Clark face off against Paige Bueckers and the Huskies last year in a riveting semis. That single game alone became a cultural touchstone, drawing casual fans and basketball diehards alike. Then came the final game of Caitlin Clark in the 2024 finals against South Carolina. A whopping 18.9 million viewers. The most viewed women's college game in history. It wasn't the Caitlin Clark effect, but it was still pretty impressive. Look, I gotta be honest, this 8.5 million viewers that they drew on Sunday, I'm not gonna lie, that's more than I thought it would be. Yeah, so I guess if we're gonna give them any flowers, they drew a bigger rating than I thought they were going to. So there's that. Which was the third most in tournament's history per ESPN, but it was a steep decline from last year's game and a slight drop from 2023's matchup. So 2023 and 2024 both whipped this particular game. Now fast forward to 2025, where UConn and South Carolina, the same two teams Clark broke viewing records against, would face up. You'd imagine if Clark were not moving the needle, then these two powerhouse teams would still achieve the same success, right? Here's where facts don't lie. The final four games featuring UConn versus UCLA and South Carolina versus Texas pulled in 4.1 million and 3.6 million viewers respectively. Then came the finals between UConn and South Carolina that pulled a whopping, wait for it, 8.5 million viewers. Yes, these numbers still made it the third most watched finals, a commendable achievement worth celebrating. But the drop-off from the previous year is impossible to ignore. The title game in 2024 brought in a record-setting 18.9 million viewers, as fans watched Dawn Staley's South Carolina team complete an undefeated season and beat the Clark-led Iowa Hawkeyes 87-75. Even with Staley's Gamecocks taking on another superstar in Paige Bueckers and UConn led by great coach Gino Auriemma, the game could not stack up to 2024's. The math isn't complicated. More than 10 million viewers who watched women's college basketball in 2024 simply didn't show up in 2025. That's not a small dip or minor fluctuation. It's a massive exodus of eyeballs. When someone moves a needle, it's typically by a few percentage points. When Caitlin Clark moves it, the dial spins completely around. What makes these numbers even more revealing is the context. The 2025 tournament wasn't lacking storylines. It featured the dominant defending champions from South Carolina, Paige Bueckers' comeback story, and a UConn program looking to reclaim its throne. These are compelling narratives that would normally drive strong viewership. Yet without Clark on the court, millions of viewers decided to watch something else. The pattern becomes undeniable when you consider the broader trend. Throughout the 2024 tournament, games featuring Iowa still set viewership records. The phenomenon wasn't limited to just the Final Four. Regular season games, early tournament rounds, even Iowa's practice sessions generated unprecedented attention. This isn't about diminishing UConn's championship or Bueckers' remarkable talent. It's simply acknowledging the reality that one player, Caitlin Clark, transformed women's basketball into must-see TV for millions of Americans who had never previously tuned in. Her combination of jaw-dropping shooting range, court vision, and unfiltered competitive fire created a perfect storm that captivated the nation. The disconnect between social media narratives and actual viewer behavior couldn't be more stark. While Twitter arguments raged about who deserved more recognition, millions of Americans were voting with their remotes, and their verdict was clear. Clark didn't just move the needle. She redefined what was possible for women's basketball viewership. 10 million people, realistically, more than 10 million people said, "Oh, I'm good on that. I'm not watching that. Wait, women's Final Four, basketball, I'm good. Is Kayla? No, she's in W. I'm good. Oh, wait, women's championship game, I'm good. Wait, is Iowa playing? Oh no, she's in the WNBA? Yeah, I'm good. But Paige Bueckers is playing. Paige Bueckers is I'm good, dude. Media experts point to Clark's unique ability to attract viewers from beyond the traditional women's basketball audience. She brought in NBA fans curious about her shooting range, casual sports viewers intrigued by the hype, and even people who rarely watch sports but were drawn to the cultural phenomenon. This crossover appeal is the holy grail for any sports league looking to grow. The viewership numbers reveal something else important. Fans connect with compelling individuals first, then develop loyalty to teams and leagues. Clark's appeal wasn't just about her skill, it was about her authenticity, her relatability, and her uninhibited joy for the game. These are qualities that translate across sports and demographics. Dave Portnoy. He just calls it like he sees it right here. You see there's 18.9 million viewers. Paige Bueckers, 8.5 million viewers. I'm going to need all the race baiters who explain Caitlin Clark's popularity simply because she's white to explain why 10 million more people watched last year. Then Paige Bueckers, also white, this year. I'll hang up and listen. Ha 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 ha. Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports put it bluntly when responding to those trying to downplay Clark's impact. These people who hate on Caitlin Clark are the dumbest people walking the planet. She has single-handedly changed women's basketball forever. While his delivery might be brash, the ratings data backs up his central point. The ratings don't lie about Clark's impact. But here's what's truly bizarre. We're talking about two generational talents who actually respect each other more than their own fans do. During a broadcast appearance, Caitlin Clark didn't participate in the rivalry social media insists on creating. Instead, she offered genuine praise for Bueckers. Her poise and her maturity, and nothing ever seems to faze her. But also she can score on all three levels. We all know she's going number 1 in the draft. That's the real story we should be focusing on. Two incredible athletes appreciating each other's games while the internet wages war on their behalf. The constant comparisons don't just divide fans. They create impossible expectations, especially for Bueckers as she prepares to enter the professional ranks. How can any player thrive when every achievement is immediately measured against someone else's accomplishments? What makes these comparisons particularly unfair is the dramatically different situations these players faced throughout their college careers. Looking beyond the obvious talent both possess, their supporting casts tell a completely different story. At UConn, Bueckers played alongside multiple 5-star recruits, including the best in their respective classes like Sarah Strong and Azzi Fudd. It created a balanced team dynamic where pressure and responsibility were distributed across several elite players. Clark's situation at Iowa, completely different. She was the lone 5-star recruit on a roster, carrying a burden few other players in college basketball history have had to shoulder. When you're examining their college careers, you're not comparing apples to apples. It's more like comparing an apple to an entire fruit basket. Their journeys required different skills, different mental approaches, and produced different results precisely because they played in fundamentally different environments. This isn't just about wins and losses. It's about understanding that greatness manifests in various ways depending on context. The 2020 recruiting class that brought both Clark and Bueckers to college also included other talents like Cameron Brink, Camila Cardoso, and yes, Angel Reese. Each of these players has carved out their own unique path to success. Using Bueckers' championship as some kind of definitive proof that she's better than Clark reduces complex careers to a single binary outcome. Even basketball legends understand this nuance. Lisa Leslie's perspective aligns with the idea that a player's legacy isn't defined solely by championship rings. Individual impact, statistical excellence, leadership, and how a player changes the game all factor into a more complete evaluation of greatness. By this more sophisticated measure, Both Clark and Bueckers have already secured their places in women's basketball history. Rather than celebrating the collective rise of women's basketball, which both athletes have contributed to significantly, this approach creates unnecessary division. It pressures fans to pick sides in a battle that the actual players themselves aren't even fighting. This who's better mindset undermines what should be a golden era for women's basketball. We're witnessing the emergence of multiple superstars, each with unique strengths, stories, and styles of play. Imagine if instead of debating who's better, we spent that energy appreciating how lucky we are to watch both of these exceptional talents develop their games simultaneously. For Bueckers specifically, the constant Clark comparisons create a no-win situation as she enters the WNBA. If she struggles initially, critics will immediately declare her overhyped. If she succeeds, the comparisons to Clark will only intensify, making it nearly impossible for her achievements to stand on their own merit. She deserves the space to write her own professional story without the shadow of comparison hanging over every game. Think about it from the player's perspective. These are young women who have dedicated their lives to mastering their craft. They understand better than anyone what it takes to reach the highest levels of basketball excellence. That's likely why they show more respect for each other's abilities than many of their most vocal supporters. Looking ahead, the WNBA stands at a thrilling inflection point. With Caitlin Clark already making waves and Paige Bueckers set to join the league, we're witnessing just the beginning of a new era. Add emerging talents like Juju Watkins, Hannah Hidalgo, and Lauren Betts to the mix, and the future of women's basketball couldn't be brighter. So, hey, listen, Caitlin, I am so thankful for her. I'm thankful for all of these women and where this game is, and we have to step back and see the big picture and how it's impacting all of us. These players aren't competing for a single spotlight. They're expanding the entire stage. Each brings unique skills and stories that collectively elevate the game. Instead of forcing rivalries, let's appreciate how this unprecedented talent wave is transforming women's basketball forever. The real win isn't crowning one player above others. It's celebrating this golden generation that's changing the game forever.